everyone, and welcome back to Your Business podcast. And I'm so excited to be chatting today with Debbie, who is the owner of Dare to Declare. And I'm just so thrilled. I met Debbie, actually, it was a couple, maybe 2 months ago, it was now, at a High Vibe Women brunch. And then I just saw her again at a High Vibe Women event. So it's just so amazing to be now chatting with you here for our listeners to hear all the amazing things that you have to offer. So, for our listeners, why don't you share a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Thank you so much. I know I do love, we were just talking about that being in person and then it's like again, and then now here online. So, my name is Debbi Sluys, as you said, and I'm from Chatham, Ontario, between London and Windsor. I'm a mom of four and then three in-laws as well, and three grandbabies. And I love being a grandma. I have two boys and two girls. My girls are twins. And one of my daughters just started working for me full time, which is really fun. And we're having a lot of laughs. And um, yeah, we yesterday just made a reel out, like we were like, hey, we should make a reel. We should involve our dog. And like, so our poor Jack Russell dog, he's like all of a sudden in this reel, we've got him in crazy outfits. So we're having a lot of fun. My expertise is vision boards. And so I discovered vision boards after spending 30 years in childcare. I was a director of a multi-site not-for-profit organization. I led a team of about 75 employees. We serve about 450 children each day at the four locations. And I loved that. And then I also felt like I was meant for something bigger, being on stages, facilitating workshops. So now I have an academy where I train trainers to use my proven process. I have a magazine, a planner, and I love doing people's retreats. So I get to travel and rub elbows with some really influential leaders like Jack Canfield, Chicken Soup for the Soul. So yeah, that's a bit about me.
Yes, that's amazing. And I just picked up on the weekend your the vision, the book, as well as like the magazine. And I thought that was such a cool idea with the magazine because I didn't realize it had everything in it to put onto your vision board and onto like the vision book. So what a very clever idea to have as well.
Thank you. You know what? I like being called clever. I was at a vendor show and somebody said that to me. She's like, "This is very clever," and I'm like, "I receive that. I like being clever." It's like, the little inner child in me likes to be acknowledged as being clever. But yeah, one of the things that we've done is we've put our magazine, so the Dare to Declare Vision Board magazine, on Amazon, and I've included the course. Did you see that? The QR
I
code is in
did.
the back.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So the course itself is like $500 value. And so now it is all in one. So people will say, I don't really know how to do it. So we've taken away that barrier with the course. And I don't know where to get magazines. And so it's a bit of a misnomer. It's more of a vision board book. But yeah,
Yes.
I compiled it with images based on the thousands of clients I've worked with over the last 7 years. The most requested images are in that magazine. So it's a one-stop shop. So yeah, I think it's pretty clever.
Yeah, it's very clever. So, can you kind of share with our audience here too and our listeners, like what was your first vision board? Like, you said you were in the corporate and leading, but and you discovered vision boards, but like, how did you even be like, this is something I want to like now take to the next level and have as a business and support other, entrepreneurs and people with creating their own visions too?
I love that question. So it's really the conception of my company. And I was saying this the other day to a gentleman. He's like, what do you mean by you did things backwards? And I said, well, a bank would have said, like, get out of here. You can't just show up with a picture and say, this is my business plan.
Yeah.
But basically, that's what I did. But the picture was of myself. And so what I did was I knew I was meant for something bigger. I knew that I was going to need photos. So I went and had a professional photo shoot. But like I've done everything in my business, it's kind of my bigger go home
Yeah.
mantra. And so I went to the local photographers and I said, who would you go to get your headshots done? And they're like, oh, you've got to go to this lady. And so she was about an hour away. Also, in terms of my budget, it was quite pricey compared to what I've
Yeah.
paid in the past, but go big or go home. And so that day, did my hair, did my makeup, took the photos, and then I recall coming back a few weeks later when, she was going to show me all the images, and I was stunned. I was shocked by my own image. And I looked at it and I said, wow, I want to be her. And she said, you are. And so in that moment, I touched what is now my life. That was 7
Yes.
years ago. And so my own image was my very first vision board. And I actually still, this is one of the ways that we offer a unique vision board. It's not about stuff. It truly is a representation of who you are and who you
Yeah.
desire to be, the best version of you. So it is all about self-image. So it's very, of course, that's the way that it went. I'm
Yes.
following my intuition and it's never wrong. And so that image, I saw a rock star where when I looked in the mirror, the message I was sending myself is you're getting older, you're a wife, you're a mom, and not very kind words to myself. But that
Yeah.
image, I was like, I aspire to be her. And so that's my first vision board.
That's amazing. And then where did you kind of go from there? Like you now have this like this image of like I am her. Like what was the next steps kind of from there?
So I knew that in order to mobilize in my business, I needed a place for people to find me and to legitimize me. So I went to a web design company and I brought in my photographer printed off. I actually have them in my closet here,
Yeah.
printed off like 8x10s of my images. I gave a few of them to my kids. My kids were like, okay, thanks, mom.
You're like, you love me,
Isn't that
appreciate me
weird?
now. Yeah.
This isn't weird just having 8x10 of my mom.
Yeah.
And I was like, what are we gonna do with these? But anyways, I brought them into the web design company and I said, here's the story. I know that I'm meant for something bigger and I just don't know what it is yet. And they didn't laugh me out. They're like, all right, let's start digging. There's a lady there and she's just was so intuitive and very aligned. And she helped me name my company, Dare to Declare, as she heard my story about some of my childhood experiences and
Yeah.
how the power of declaring and declaring your truth. And so, yeah, I love the name of my company. And then I discovered, so I mentioned him already, but I discovered vision boards
Yeah.
because it came across my news feed. I mean, it's one of those things where you have to be open to receive. And I
Yep.
was curious about it because as I said, my background was in childcare. So I love anything that's playful, that's fun, that's hope
Yep.
filled. And so I started to research what is this about vision boards? And then I discovered Jack Canfield, like I said, the Chicken Soup for the Soul,
Yep.
Best Principles, watched and consumed all of his videos. Um, and then with my husband's support, we built a studio. So I actually had, it's past tense, I just let it go this past fall, but
Yeah.
an in-person studio, which was specifically constructed. It had a very Kate Spade kind of feel,
Yes.
very pretty and feminine, and created that studio and opened up my doors in 2018. So I was still doing vision board, or still doing my full-time career as a childcare director and doing vision boards on the weekend. So I'm not a big proponent, like I find this actually dangerous message, like quit your job, jump in. Like I support my clients to say, let's transition in, right? So
Yes.
hone your skill. I'm a big proponent of just do it, do the thing, and don't feel like you have to be ready, but do it. But then you can do both. It doesn't need to be an either or, it can be an and. And for me, that's what I did until it did hit a point where I was like, all right, am I in or am I out? And that way, when it transitions from hobby to business. And so I was ready
Yes.
to make it a business. And so I gave my notice, my board of directors. I gave them 6 months because I figured I've been there 30 years. I need to clean up three
Yeah.
offices. And it was, if you ever moved,
There's a lot. Yeah.
it's a
That
lot.
goes with it.
But then COVID hit. And so I
Yes.
thought at that time I made a huge mistake. I'm like, oh, I can't do in-person workshops. What am I going to do? And I hired a coach. And one of my final projects with her was to create an online workshop. And so I thought, well, I'm just going to experiment and see if vision boards actually will translate online. Like I'd only
Yeah.
done them in person. And so I created a mini vision board called a power word because it was something that was getting me through exiting my job during
Yep.
COVID. My word that year was generous. And so every time I would be challenged by the health unit with new regulations coming through weekly, or my staff were like, who's taking your place? I would say, what would my most generous self do? And I would show up as her. And it helped me exit with grace, with dignity and calm
Yeah.
and just reset. It's like and that little workshop has still become one of my staples, actually. I just gave it last week to a financial company, to their team. So
That's
it's
amazing.
so amazing, yeah, how that came out of what really was crisis, but has become a staple. And now it's also in my academy. My trainers use it as a lead magnet with their clients. So yeah,
Yeah. Well, and even during that time, like, the major word was pivot for everybody, but the fact that you're able to like go online and still give people like that additional like support and get people dreaming, right? Like that was a state where like not everybody was being inspired and uplifting. So it was really like you giving them that space to be able to now create and to, you brought up the point about being. So like who do you want to be? What do you want to be? Kind of thing. So I feel like you were really giving them that platform to really do that too.
absolutely. A lot of people, even people that are in this personal development work, shy away from a vision board because if you look at most of them that are on Pinterest, they're very messy, they're a
Yeah.
collage, and they're about stuff. Like,
Yeah.
the Ferrari, the big house, and they're like, that doesn't feel right. And because most people are identifying a vision board as have, do, and be, meaning what do I want to have?
Yes.
What do I need to do to have that stuff? And then someday I'll be happy. Where at Dare to Declare, we flip it around. Who do I
Yes.
get to be? So the being is what shows up on the board so that, yes, you can still have the fancy car and the big house, but imagine yourself in it, filled with love, with joy. And so
Yeah.
that's where because otherwise it's just stuff floating around. It's not connected to you or your life. So who do I get to be? Then what do I need to do? Being the goal setting. So you saw as well that planner that I was selling on the weekend.
Yeah.
That's where the doing comes in because people sometimes think, oh, a vision board, great. And then I'll just wait for it to manifest. Well,
Yeah.
there's another piece of it where
Yes.
action, the word action is embedded in the law of attraction. Like, so there
Yes.
needs to be consistent action, the way that we develop our habits. And then the have, we get to just hold our hands open to see what's available to receive. And what has been my experience is that it's always bigger and better. Like when I looked at that photo of myself all those years ago, I touched the magic of what is my life now, but I had no idea it would be this amazing. I had no idea
Yeah.
I get to travel and offer vision boards and be called the vision board queen by like influencers like Jack Canfield. Like that just
Yeah.
like what? How is this my life? I'm just a small town girl from Ontario, Canada, and wow, like I had no idea. So what's received is always bigger and better. And we need to have a mindset that's open to receive it because
Yes.
those little darn saboteurs show up and tell us we're not worthy of it. That can't be for us. Who do you think
Yeah.
you are? And so we ask for it, we believe that it's possible, but then sometimes we get in our own way and we block the receiving of what's being sent to us.
Yes. So let's talk about that for a minute because you bring up a really good point about like the saboteurs that come in. So like what is something that you do for yourself when you have those little like voices that come in and say, it's not meant for me or how can this happen kind of thing? Like what is something that you do to support you through that?
Well, um, a mastermind. That's my
Yes.
fast answer, mastermind. And so I was blessed to be interviewed. I've been saying his name a fair bit here on the podcast, by
Yeah.
Jack. And I went to his home in California, and I got to be have a live interview with him. And I shared about my academy, and then when the interview was complete, I was like, oh, the polite Canadian. I'm like, okay, bye. And then I thought to myself, what are you doing? You have him all to yourself. Like, make
Yes.
small talk, Deb. What?
Yes.
You know? So I asked two questions. One was, how can I support you? And he seemed
Yes.
taken back by that. And he was like, oh, well, if you want to write a chapter in my next book. And I'm like, yes.
Yes,
And
please.
yeah.
Yes.
And so that's a really great question to ask, by the way. If you're
Yes.
stuck, how can I support you? And then the next question I said is, what do you have any advice for me in how I can grow my success? And he said, either get into one or create a mastermind. And he is
Yes.
so right. My quantum leaps, when I have been not be able to see what's right in front of me, my mastermind has reflected back to me. So the reason I started the academy was because of my mastermind. I've had different masterminds, like this isn't the same one that I had back then, but I remember being in a global coaching company. It was for me, I was a student,
Yeah.
a customer, a client, and all of my colleagues, like I'd only known and experienced vision boards in Ontario, Canada. I didn't know that, people like the coaches from the UK and Ireland and the United States. And what they were reflecting back to me is, Deb, nobody is doing vision boards in our country like you are. I was like,
Yeah.
wow, you're saying that, and you're saying that, and you're saying that. That's so interesting. And so then they're like, but we use vision boards in our practice. Like everyone talks about imagination, everyone helps their clients create a vision. Can we use your stuff? And I was like, yeah, I guess, just give me credit. And then my mastermind is like, what are you doing? Why are you giving this away? Right? Like that's like
Yes,
you can see
yes.
these powerhouse women like, we got you, girl. Like
Mm,
you're not going to give this away. And so I just felt this tap on my shoulder from God to say, okay, next level, Deb. And so that's
yes.
when I created my academy and I hired a course content creator. And that was painful. I think it's probably as painful as writing a book. Like it's just like, ugh, like I'm not a detail person. I am like definitely a visionary. And it's
Yes.
like having her take my courses and then make them so that I can teach them to others.
Yes. Well, when
Oh,
everything's in your head too, right? And like you said, it's all visionary to you. So then to actually like articulate it into words to like, yeah, I could imagine that would have been a bit challenging trying to get that out there too.
and just yeah, and make it so that because I mean, everybody knows this, like driving or, making supper, like we just do it.
Yeah, it's just second nature. It just happens. Like you just do what you need to do.
Even empty the dishwasher, right? But if
Yes.
you actually have to say, I'm going to teach someone how to empty the dishwasher, like, and
Yeah.
break it down step by step, it's so tedious. And I admire anyone who does this content creation and does, because it like it made me want to poke my eyes out. I was like,
I
but then when it was done, I was so proud of it. And it's so
Yes.
incredible. It's such an awesome program. But that would not have happened had I not been in a mastermind. And the other one, if I can I give another example?
Absolutely. Yeah, please do.
So this is my manifestation story is that um I had declared in Saskatoon, I was at another coaching company, and at the end of the retreat we had or conference, we had to stand up and declare what our big vision was. So I declared, and it was just coming out of COVID, I said, I will do luxury retreats abroad with my own magazine. So to date, before that, I'd only been doing them back online because it was COVID, but I knew that there was this big movement of people wanting to go back in person. People were craving that connection. They still are.
Yes. Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I'd only been able to accommodate people either in my studio with all the magazines there or piling my husband's pickup truck and driving them. Like I went to Sudbury and like
Yeah.
but I knew now that I had clients all over the world who were open to me either being the guest at their retreat or they themselves wanted the vision board, and I knew
Yeah.
I needed a magazine. So I had been asked to do this retreat 3 times. So I mean, this is over a period of like it started in September. The retreat that I was at and I declared it was October. So by time October had hit, I'd already turned her down, I think 3 times.
Yeah.
My mastermind was like, Deb, we heard you, like, again, powerhouse
Yes.
women, we heard
Yes.
you say, and I was like, oh, you're right. Oh
I
my
did.
goodness. There it is. The universe is sending me this gift of this retreat. But the reason I had said no was because I had paid for my own retreat. It was going to be conflicting on that same week,
Yeah.
and it was $1,000. And I was hanging on tight to that
The
1,000.
thousand. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And I'm so grateful for my mastermind who could help me, uncurl my fingers around what I was hoarding, what I was holding on to. And I got to gift that retreat to someone else that was so deserving. She was so
Yes.
appreciative. Like, the flow of money is just incredible, right? So when I was able to gift, like that felt amazing. The organizer of that retreat was so grateful that I replaced myself and
Yeah.
they met someone new. Then I was able to say yes to the retreat host. They were overjoyed because they've been frantic, like, we really need you. And I was trying to find one of my graduates to go. And
Yeah.
I was able to say yes. But then I still have the dilemma, like, how am I going to create a magazine? Like, and by the way, this was 5 weeks later. So I declared it in October and the retreat was going to be November.
Oh my gosh. So you had a quite quick turnaround time frame there.
So it was in Cape Cod, so I knew I couldn't just drive. I could, but it would be very challenging to drive the magazines across the border and everything.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to a friend, a colleague in Australia, because I had been featured in her magazine. And I said, Christine, is it hard to make a magazine? Fully expecting her to say, like even the saboteur, fully expecting
Yeah.
to say, oh yeah, like that's impossible. She's like, no, no, it's not hard. What? I can't believe this. And she's like, I can teach you. Give me a vision board magazine or a course
Or
in
yeah.
exchange. Like you coach me to do a vision board and then I'll teach you how to make a magazine. And so 5 weeks later, I was on an airplane going to Cape Cod at that retreat, serving 12 powerhouse business women in one of the most prestigious places in Cape Cod, the Chatham Bars Inn. We had our own little cottage that for the vision boards. It was a
Yes.
2 day event, and there's my magazine. And so here, like this took,
Yes.
this is, you can see I've refined it. This is my sixth edition.
Yeah.
That was like 2 years ago. Um, 12 pairs of scissors, 12 glue sticks, my laptop, and 12 magazines. And like
That's amazing.
that was because of the mastermind. So that's what I do. I get women that will hold my feet to the fire and say, this is what you said you wanted. And so it's being sent to you. It's probably in a bigger and different package than you expected, which is why it's so scary.
Yes.
But this is what you want. Go get it.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing because there's so many things in there, again, sharing about how the power of having other women strong that are able to support you and see kind of like what you don't see and walk you through that. The power of connection, the fact that were reminded like, oh, I've reached out to somebody in Australia, like, and the fact that you could support her, she could support you. Like, there's just so much in that that's like, that's one of the most amazing things that comes with women in business too, right? Like, we're just so wanting to all win and all succeed in what we're doing.
For sure. I was reading this book. Why is the title escaping me? I think it's called The Service Berry, but it's about a
Okay.
tree and it's indigenous. It's written by an indigenous woman in
Yeah.
the United States. And the whole book is about the idea of a gift economy
Yes.
versus a supply and demand economy. And like if you think about like the little stands that are popping up with take a book, leave a book, right?
Yes.
Here's extra vegetables for my garden. Take them for free. People bring
We
them into
have plants
workplaces.
here in London. We have extra plants and we'll put them at the front. Like, take these plants. We don't need like the hostas and stuff, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the gift economy. And it's based on, so indigenous, like it's based on looking at Mother Earth, looking at, in this case, she looked at the tree, the single tree, where it takes what it needs. So it's still taking, it's not just
Yeah.
giving, it needs to take the nutrients from with the roots, and then it takes the sun and the rain, but then it gives back floral, it gives back berries, and the birds can take it, humans can take it. It's just like freely giving of abundance. And there's something so beautiful about that. And I think that's what we aspire. And that's really the feminine way. I think it's just a really beautiful way to do business.
Yeah, absolutely. And you even, going back to your point about how like we always are collecting things, right? So that's what we think we need to do on the vision board. And when you're saying it's around the being, it's really being intentional of like, why do you want this? Right?
Mhm.
Like, why are we trying to pull all these things in if it's at the end of the day you're wanting to be happy? Well, let's, what you're saying, like with Mother Earth and with like sharing and stuff like that. It's like, why do you want that? And if you're not
Mhm.
wanting it, it's okay that it's meant for somebody else too.
For sure. The vision is really like I've niched in on the vision piece. As you can tell, I dabble also in the goal setting piece.
Yeah.
But before the vision piece, you just hit on it. It's the why, it's the purpose. So
Yeah.
I believe your purpose doesn't change. It
Yeah.
may mature, it may become refined, but the purpose is the big why. And then
Yeah.
the vision continues to evolve. So that's why I recommend people also create a vision board. It's not a one and done. Like every 12 months, 12 to 18 months, you're going to want to create a new vision. Leave your vision board intact. I've heard some people say, oh, I pulled pictures off because it didn't manifest. I'm like, no, it'll continue to mature like fine wine.
Yes.
Create another one because as you meet new people, as you have new ideas and revelations and epiphanies, you're going to want to modify and expand your vision.
Okay, so you have like kind of you're suggesting like every year to 18 months, like go back, create like a new one, and then you still have the old one to go back and like reflect on. Also feel like that would be such like an empowering exercise as well too to go back and see like, oh my gosh, like this is at that time who I wanted to be. This has came to life. This hasn't. I'm glad that this has kind of shifted, right? So I feel like that'd be a really great like reflection exercise as well too.
It is, I just got off a call with one of my former clients And she just got on a call with me to brag, and I love it. She's like, I got to tell you what's all happened for my vision board. And when we first started working together, like many of my clients, they're at a crossroads. They don't know which direction to go into. Now, I worked with her one to one, so we really could dive deep. But one of the things that we discovered is in her heritage, it's very much about horticulture, um, and there was maybe with her there was like a bit of shame attached to her legacy and her culture and her heritage, and so really shifting the narrative on that and celebrating that. And so that's actually what she's now creating her business on. And she's put all the hours in. I think she just needs a few more courses, but like this is only a few years ago. She is now going to be a certified horticultural therapist.
So cool.
And it was not even
Yeah.
on the radar a few years ago. And there was shame even around. And now it's
Yeah.
taken, so her purpose and then created this vision, but then got into the goals, which is like putting one, and she's a busy mom. I kept saying, I'm so proud with you. I clapped
Yes.
for her. Like I
Oh,
was just like, oh, like, and I think she, like, by bouncing it back off of me, I was able to reflect back to her, like, sometimes we're so in it that we don't see all the wins.
yes.
And so I took her back. I said, "Don't you remember our first sessions?" Like I said, "Now look at you. You've taken this." And she's working with children. She's working with people with addictions. She's working like all this beautiful work, getting back to the land and have it be therapy is just incredible.
Oh, that's amazing. And just such, again, like it's a full picture for her to see like where she's was to where she is and then really fulfilling like what her purpose is. So and I think from what you're sharing too, like the vision board helps you like dive deeper into that as well too, right?
Absolutely. I really love to, I think I'm the vision whisperer,
Yes.
where I have people create the vision beyond the vision. And
Yes.
so I have a good ear to listen to what is not being said,
Yes.
and or that's being said, say at the lunch break, where people let
Right.
their guard down. It's like, okay, now I'm not
Yes.
making a vision board. Now I'm going to talk about the fact that I'm single and I really would like to have a partner, but they weren't talking about that. And so I have an example actually in my workshop where Melissa, one of my clients, previous clients, so she was almost finished her board. And I said, Melissa, where's your guy? And she said, what guy? And I said, the man you want to marry. She goes, I don't have
Yeah.
a boyfriend, Deb. And I said, well, let's go find him. So this was still back in my studio, and we looked through the magazines, and she found an image of a couple that was in an embrace.
Yes.
And I declared with her and for her, I said, okay, we're all invited to her wedding. A year, almost to the day later, I had on my fridge an invitation with a couple that was in an embrace that she married. And the picture was so similar to the one on her vision board that when I put them side by side with her permission on my
Yeah.
page, people didn't know that it wasn't her. They assumed that it was just dupe. I'm like, no, this is her vision board. He wasn't even in the picture, and this is now her reality.
Wow.
And the story continues to evolve. So they've been trying for a baby.
Yeah.
And I didn't know this until just a few weeks ago. I actually put it in my stories, her little testimonial. She said
Yeah.
that she bought my magazine and she and her mom did another vision board because the last one she had done was with me would have been then in 2018. So it's high time. So
Yeah.
she did one with her mom in September and she is 12 weeks pregnant.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh
She
my
said,
gosh.
this is my miracle baby.
Yes. Oh, and like even for you, that's got to just continue to like fill up your cup as well too, seeing like, you've created this vision, the support, the tools that you have, and then seeing it come to life with the people that you're supporting is just like such an amazing full circle moment, I feel like as well too.
Absolutely. I know many coaches have that where they can see the breakthrough, see the transformation,
Yes.
but we get to do it at a different level, we being my graduates and I, where it's tangible.
Yes.
I'm recalling things from my past client as well. And she said, and she was actually saying, she goes, don't you remember on my vision board I had that I wanted to work with people in addiction? And I'm like, no, I don't actually remember that. But she does because
She
it
does.
was on her past vision board that she
Yes.
still kept. And she's like, that's now manifesting. And I just was asked to offer this for this program, which is just incredible. So yes, I love it. And I love where you can physically say, here's the vision board picture, here's my
Yes.
reality. Like
Yes, that.
so fun. It just so that just cycles back to raising the vibration because we haven't really
Yes.
talked about that, but that's the
Yes.
secret. You ever watched the movie The Secret? It's
Yes.
all about frequency and raising your vibration. And so
Yes.
the vision board is what is the tool that because it actually can be counterproductive if it's just stuff.
Yes.
Because your mind's going to say, I'll never get that stuff. Like if you don't have an emotional connection to what you put on your board, it
Yeah.
actually can repel it like in that way for manifestation. So you need
Yeah.
to have a really good feeling. Um, we say ask, believe, and receive. So ask for
Yes.
what you want, get really clear on what you want, and then believe that it's possible, knowing that the universal laws always work because it's a
Yes.
law, and then getting open to receive.
Right. And you bring up a good point too, probably around the fact of like not almost like obsessing about it too, right? Because I feel like sometimes people put stuff on like their vision board of what they want, and they're asking, and then they're like, well, how? When's this going to happen? Sometimes we get like too in it, like, I put this on, it's been 2 years. Why hasn't this come to life yet, too? So, like, what are your kind of thoughts around that aspect too?
Yeah, for sure. It is the energy you're putting into it.
Yeah.
So it's like hanging on too tight, and that you're going to squeeze it. We need to be sitting like a receiver with open hands, being like holding the results loosely. That's,
Yes.
in that whatever is being received, and knowing that there is a gestation time, and that's a law as well. So,
Yeah.
you plant a seed, if you keep digging it up, it'll never grow.
Absolutely.
So, so then to answer that question and using the seed analogy, there needs to be goals. So you need to make sure that the seed doesn't have weeds around it. You need to tend to it. You need to water it. You need to make sure it gets enough sun, and then allow the gestation, allow for it to sprout, and
Yes.
then protect that little plant. So that's what you do with goals, is that you get into action and you change your habits with that
Yeah.
vision in mind, and then you come back to the present to say, what's one thing I can do to be the better version of me today?
Yes.
Showing gratitude, maybe, um, like I was just talking to this lady, so this is in my mind, but
Yeah.
like, there needs to be inspired action and obvious action. And obvious action
Yes.
is if you want to be a therapist, you need to take courses. Like you can't just hang your shingle and say, "Oh, I'm a therapist." Um, so that's the obvious action, but maybe if you do 5 acts per day,
Yep.
picking up, or just going to the website to see what number I need to call. And then the next
Yep.
action is actually making that call. And then
Yes.
maybe the next action is leaving a message with your phone number for someone to return it. And then, finding out what your schedule is for the next few months to see where can I fit this course in. That's number 4. And then maybe it's telling your spouse about it. That's 5. There are 5 acts. If you do 5 of those every day, by the end, you've got 25 acts. You have moved the needle.
Yes.
And you've also shifted your energy. So you're more likely to also, I caution, like attraction makes it feel like it needs to come from somewhere, but it's more of a revealing what's already there,
Right. Yeah.
and that you're going to
And
see who are the people that need to be supporting you for your success to maybe be this therapist. Who do you need to talk to? Who do you get to be, the version of you? And it's like I started to use this image a few years ago. Did you ever have the kids magazine highlighter?
no, I never did.
Okay, I don't know if it's an American thing, but
Oh,
it's like a children's. It's sometimes they would have them in doctor's offices, but you probably know what I'm talking about with this, where it's like
yeah.
a picture search. So it's like a
Yes.
picture, but then pictures are within the picture,
Yes. Yep.
right? So if you think of it like that, where that's what life is like.
Yes.
Abundance is all around us, but we're just looking at the picture. But when we get the key, meaning all the little items that we could look for, that's our vision board
Yes.
to say, look for the person to help you, look for the money, look for this opportunity to start your business. Then you start to see it within the picture. You start to see the little pizza hidden in the dog's tail. You start to see the boomerang in the tree. You start to, like, it was there all along.
Yes.
But that once you get focused on it, it's like all of a sudden it magically you start to see it.
Right. And you're not gripping it so tightly too, right?
Right.
Like you're actually allowing some time for like some fun, some play, some creativity, and just allowing a life to unfold too. And kind of what you're saying with this picture of like it being like a bird's eye view, like coming out, like pause, take a step back, look out and go, oh, you know what? You're like you're saying, it is all in front of me. I just needed a moment to give myself not so much pressure to actually see what's already here in front of me.
For sure. And going back to this idea of obsessing or hanging on too tight, creating a habit around the focus, I think that will help as well because we only change our brains, and this work actually physically changes your brains. Like research
Yes.
shows that it actually changes the composition of your brain. And we only change our brain for two reasons. One is a dramatic event. Usually
Yeah.
it's something that's trauma related, a death
Yeah.
or diagnosis with health, and repetition of thought.
Yes.
So having that repeated affirmation along with repeated focus on what it is, you know, I know this in my own life, like money, like for example, even spending money. I remember the first time I spent $3,000 on a coaching program and I thought I was going to throw up.
Yeah.
Now
Oh,
I drop like 100,000, like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And you don't
so,
even think, but you've regulated
well, I
yourself and
still
your
think about it. I'm
energy.
not going to
Well,
say, I'm not going to say I
that's
don't.
true.
I
You
do, but I
do,
don't,
but you,
but it's my new norm. It's not,
yes.
it's my new way of being. And I haven't done that in a bit. I have to, but yeah, so it's usually 100 over a year. I won't
Yes.
one
Yeah.
program. I just want to be transparent here. But the point I'm trying to make is that you level up in terms of what becomes your new norm because your future self, you bring that into
Yes.
the present. You start to show up as her. You start to make decisions as she would.
Yes. And like again, to you're regulating your energy around that, right? So you're like now thinking about $3,000, you're like, okay, I thought about it. I still feel good, listening to like your intuition around it kind of thing. Where, before you might have been like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. So again, you've regulated yourself to feel like into stepping more into like being her as well, too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. When I do have to make and get to make these kind of bigger decisions, my intuition, I definitely much more into that. You're right, and feel into that. And I know it's right when I think, how would I feel if I don't do this? I'm like,
Yes.
I won't like that. I'll regret this. And like it's like almost like okay, I have to do this.
Yes, that's such a good point to bring up, like asking yourself those better questions. Like, if I don't, how am I going to feel about this too?
And there's FOMO and there's those kinds of the ego
Yes.
shows up, but really almost going into the future to talk to your future self and say, will I be upset with my past self and say, you should have done that, Like,
Yes.
will my future self thank me for making this decision?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point as well too. So for any of our listeners, I know you've kind of talked about like vibration, but I also believe affirmations is like one of the big things as well too. So is that something that you encourage people to do on like what's kind of like a daily habit or practice they can do once they've kind of set out some of their vision too?
hmm So, um, I actually have it within my planner so that you can write it down. So there's power in writing and
Yeah.
speaking it out loud.
Yes.
You're 42% more likely to manifest your goals if you write it down. If you share it and speak it to someone that you trust, it goes up to 65%, and like adding those images. And then like we talked about earlier with the mastermind, if you have accountability or a coach, those results go up to 95% more likely. So yeah, and then the repetition of thought. So yeah, I have a spot in my planner right beside for every day to write that out. So
Yeah.
I'm so happy and grateful now that. So that's the protocol. I got that from Jack Canfield as well as Bob Proctor. They both
Yeah.
use that. And then fill it in. And it should be specific and brief, and tied into one of your goals. So,
Yes.
and that it actually is measurable. So I'm so happy and grateful now that, I've enrolled 10 new clients into this program. I'm so happy and grateful now that I'm earning $10,000 per month with joy and ease, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. And so what is even like your own vision for like the next couple of years if you're open to sharing? I know we've kind of talked briefly before, so I'd love to, for our listeners to hear kind of what you're working on too.
Yeah. So Now you're making me blush.
I know.
That's good. That's good. It means that just means that there's some tension there.
Yeah.
And I take that as, the saboteurs wanting me to stay quiet. But my
Yes.
big thing is that I will host
Yes.
a big conference. And so I've been reaching out to Jamie Kern Lima. So if you're listening to this podcast, Jamie,
Yes. If she would,
uh,
that'd be amazing. Yes, you to
yeah,
both
let's
of
tag
us.
her.
So
Let's tag her
yes.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she is definitely on my radar. I was hoping to have a conference this year. And here's a great lesson. I can share this. I mean, this is just me being vulnerable, but uh, she said no. I talked to her team, and her team was pretty sure she'd say yes. I found the funds to pay her, which is
Yeah.
again, you know, gulp kind of
Yeah.
thing. But I did. I found investors, and also had a location, I hired an event planner, everything was lined up, and then I got a no. And I cried actually. I was on
Yeah.
vacation. I was coming off the airplane, saw the email from her team. And what she said was that she's just started the Shark Tank. So she's very busy. She's got young children, and
Yeah.
I know she's in the States and Canada. And so just in terms of the distance.
Yeah.
And thank goodness again for my mastermind and actually my academy too, because one of my academy students said to me when I told them about this, and I said, this is my dream. And they said, well, ask her what would make it a yes.
Such a
And
good question.
isn't that great?
Yes.
What's between the no and the yes? Like, what is that
Yes.
space? Like, she's actually said her piece, but what would make it a yes? So I went back to her team. And I thought, okay, so she's told me the Shark Tank thing. And so I thought, well, let's move it to April 2026.
Yeah.
And so that way the Shark Tank, she'll have a year under her belt. By then,
Yeah.
should be, a pretty well-oiled machine if she's still even there.
Right.
And then I'll give her a choice of two locations in Canada so that she can choose which one. And one of my students, well, graduates now, who is an expert in early years, offered childcare. She's like, I'll come. Now, I'm thinking Jamie probably has her own nanny, but
Right. But
so every one of those things that she'd said that would be a hindrance, I had an answer for. So I thought either she's going to find me incredibly annoying, or she's going to admire my persistence, and I'd rather the
yeah.
latter. So I'm just
Yes.
going to go back and give this. So I went back to her team and I said, this is my proposal. What do you think? They came back and they said, let's circle back in the fall. So it wasn't a no.
No, that's
It's a
amazing.
maybe, and I'll take a maybe. So
Yes.
stay tuned. So that's my big, and thank you for asking around this.
Yeah.
So that's my big vision for 2026 is that I host a women's conference that is girly girly, like because Jamie Kern Lima is girly girly,
Yes.
that it is also so incredibly powerful, like her book Worthy, which made a
Yes.
huge impact on my life. And I just love she's adopted, so am I.
Yeah.
She is a Christian, so am I. And so I just feel there's a lot of synchronicities with her.
Yes.
But there's so much to be able to be learned. I mean, she's been so successful with selling her cosmetic company
Yes.
and being an author. And so, yeah, I'm just really excited to see what is in store for my future.
That's amazing. And I think you bring up a good point too around like, it wasn't a no. And the fact that like if you're wanting your goals to come to life, you're taking that action. Like you still have that belief and that trust, but you're also taking the action and like, okay, well, what asking the question, going to your mastermind, saying like, well, would make this a yes, and then, going forward. So you're still building that higher vibration like you were talking about earlier as well, too, to then be like, okay, it's still my vision. It's still happening. What can I like continue to do? So I think that's such a beautiful story.
Can you see her on the middle
I
there?
do see her. Yes, absolutely.
So this is my goal board for April. So I've already created where I know we're next week is April, but I went
Yes,
ahead yesterday and created that. And so I don't know if the listeners are they gonna have opportunity to see this
they
too?
are. Yeah, I put this goes out on YouTube as well too, and then I do it
Okay.
on social
So
media.
yeah,
So
so this
yes.
is my goal board that I've created. So I create one every month in my planner. and I chunk down my big vision, and then this is where it gets really specific. So yeah, so I've got her. This is the second time. I had her 2 months ago as well. And so I just want to keep her forefront of my mind so that it becomes
Yes.
my norm, that she's just part of my, yeah, of course she's part of my circle. You know, interesting things happen. Like I just joined a networking company that I actually met. The lady was beside me in the booth at the High Vibe. Yeah.
Oh, very
So
cool.
we can maybe
Yeah.
give them a shout out. Entreprenista.
Yes, yes, I'm
I just
familiar with
joined them
them.
yesterday, and I was. She asked me this question. I think I'm wondering how I got to on this topic, but she said that the founder of that is friends with Jamie Kernlima and has had her on her podcast twice. And I'm like, of course.
Of course,
So,
see again, full circle with everything. Yes.
so there's that connection, right? It's like
Yes.
if you are open to receive. And I was like, that's amazing. Like once I'd love to have a conversation with her and to see whether or not she can, you know, put in a good word with Jamie for me to say, well,
Right.
she's part of my community now, and I'd love for you to work with her. Who knows? We'll see. But that happened yesterday. I forgot actually.
That's amazing. And it goes again with like the power of connection, and you never know who knows who and how they could be of like service to you and you be of service to them as well too.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that came from last week's conference was about make people feel good and make the
Make
products
people look good and make
look
people
good.
feel good was the two.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you. Yeah. And I love that. And that's where it's that gifting economy.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Deb, I feel like we could be talking forever. So I want to thank you so much for being on here and sharing your beautiful story. And I'll be sure to include in the show notes, where people can find you and the links to like your socials and stuff like that as well too. But is there any kind of like parting wisdom or words you want to share with our listeners before we pop off?
So if you don't know where to start, you're like, wow, vision boards, that feels daunting. Start with a single word. Who do you decide to be? We talked about be, do, have. Like, who
Yep.
do you decide to be? And like, we're all like a thermostat. Sometimes we get really hot when challenges come, or sometimes we get really cold and just stay in bed. Sometimes we
Yeah.
just run away and we leave the thermostat altogether. So we're constantly regulating ourselves. And so choose a word that will help you regulate so that when you're stuck in traffic, when your kids are screaming, whatever that challenge is, that you reset your mind to that higher version of yourself so you stay in that higher vibration. And that's a really beautiful place to begin this whole process.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's been a pleasure to have you today. And yeah, I can't wait for everyone to listen to this and then to also get their own copy and dive in as well too. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun.